wanted to use
Billy Short.
What alarmed Moynihan, because he saw it in minority urban communities, is now happening in these white working class areas in rural America. Growing up in West Virginia, I can tell you that the main difference between the situation for people in these circumstances in Detroit and the people in Boone County or Logan County, West Virginia, is just which drug it is. Crack cocaine in the cities, methamphetamine in the hollows. That also shows us that it was never about race. It was always about culture. Culture really, really, really matters. And at the core of culture are two things: family and faith. If they erode, if one erodes, the other will erode. And if they erode, we're in really, really big trouble. And you know who the victims are? They're not my students. My students come from Scarsdale, Westchester County, Greenwich. They're not the Princeton faculty. The Princeton faculty can put its Obama-Biden signs up on manicured lawns in front of magnificent homes. If the kids get in any trouble, you can send them to expensive rehab for drugs or alcohol. Or you can hire a fancy lawyer who can get the kid out of the soup. The victims aren't people like me or like you or like my students or like my colleagues. They are poor people. Minority people in inner cities, white working class or poor people in the urban areas. Who's looking after them? Who is concerning themselves with the quality of the marriage culture that is for them a lifeline, economically, socially, in spiritual and in material effects? Just about nobody. When my colleagues, my liberal colleagues, say, as they have on many occasions, "Look, Robbie, let's assume for the sake of argument for a moment that you're right. Let's just assume for the sake of argument. You're not right, but let's assume for the sake of argument you're right about marriage. Here you are spending so much time on this moral question when you could be using your time and your activism and your talents to fight poverty." And I say to them, well, first I hit my head like that. And then I say, can you guys not get it? I'm in the marriage fight, the fight for the marriage culture, precisely because I want to fight poverty. Because I want young people to grow up with the kinds of material, moral, and spiritual advantages that you have only where there's a healthy marriage culture. Now, same-sex marriage didn't cause the collapse of the marriage culture. Not in Detroit, not in Logan County or Boone County, West Virginia. Same-sex marriage is not the cause of the problem. It's an effect. It's a symptom of the problem. What it represents, however, is this: the final abolition in law of the very idea of conjugal marriage that grounds the norms of marriage, that enables marriage to play its social function, play its social role. To define marriage out of existence, to replace marriage with something else, some other way of organizing human sexual relations, and then just reassign the name marriage to it, means there is no going back. There's no principled basis for the work that Maggie Gallagher and David Blankenhorn and I and others, Diane, were doing in the 80s when we got into this battle and nobody had ever heard of same-sex marriage. So, Father, I'm with you 100%. We're not fighting for some abstract moral thing. We're fighting for the well-being of concrete flesh and blood human beings, little tiny ones, who are, in the end, the victims of a culture that throws marriage under the bus. Have we done our Q&A, do you think, or want to do some more? Thank you.